Claire Bennett, 28 years old, never imagined her father would wound her in front of an entire family tree. 3 weeks earlier, during their reunion, he had picked up the microphone, looked across the crowd of 68 relatives and said, "We only have one daughter we're proud of." His eyes never shifted. They stayed locked on her older sister, Brooklyn. For 22 years, Claire had been the burden, the premature baby who cost too much, the quiet child nobody defended, the daughter always sitting at the end of the table while Brooklyn collected tuition money, praise and family pride. But none of them, not her parents, not her cousins, not a single person, knew what Claire held on her phone. 6 weeks earlier, Brooklyn had sat in Claire's small apartment, drinking wine, talking too freely and confessing secrets she never meant to say out loud. She admitted stealing their parents' money, faking her nursing degree and manipulating the family for years. Claire had recorded it. 14 minutes and 22 seconds of truth that could shatter 2 decades of silence. "Before I tell you what happened when I pressed play," Claire would later say, "let me take you back to where it all began." Claire had arrived in the world 6 weeks early on a cold January night in Georgia. The nearest hospital didn't have a NICU, so her parents drove 40 minutes farther, terrified and unprepared. Her lungs weren't ready. Her heart wasn't ready. Nothing about her tiny body was ready. She spent 3 weeks in the neonatal intensive care unit, hooked to machines that kept her alive, while her parents drowned under $87,000 in medical bills. Her mother, Linda, repeated that number every Thanksgiving, Christmas and family gathering. "Claire almost bankrupted us before she could open her eyes," she'd say, and everyone laughed. When Claire finally came home wrapped in a yellow blanket, Brooklyn leaned over the crib and asked, "Can we send her back?" It became the Bennett family's favorite joke for 2 decades. Claire heard it at birthday parties, school events, and every time she made a mistake. Her father said it when she spilled juice. Her mother whispered it to her sister on the phone. Cousins repeated it like a family slogan. By age 10, Claire understood the rules. Rule 1. Brooklyn comes first. Rule 2. If something goes wrong, blame Claire. Rule 3. Don't complain about rules 1 and 2. When Claire was 14, life sharpened. Brooklyn accused her of stealing their grandmother's gold pendant, a family heirloom meant to be passed down. Claire hadn't touched it, but her mother believed Brooklyn instantly. "Kneel and apologize," Linda ordered in front of 12 relatives. Claire knelt, crying, apologizing for a theft she never committed. 2 weeks later, the necklace appeared in Brooklyn's dresser drawer. "Must have gotten mixed with laundry," her mother said. Nobody apologized. That night, Claire found her mother's old journal. Inside was a line written the year she was born. "Sometimes I wish we stopped at 1. Claire read it 7 times. Claire left home the summer she turned 18. She earned a partial scholarship to a state college 2 hours away. Nothing fancy, but it was hers. All she needed was help covering the remaining tuition. She brought the financial aid letter to dinner, hopeful. Her father barely glanced at it. Her mother didn't even look up from her plate. "We've already spent enough on you," Linda said. "Hospital bills, braces, inhalers, you're too expensive." That same week, her parents wrote a full $28,000 check for Brooklyn's nursing program. No hesitation. No questions. "That's our investment," her father said. "Brooklyn always makes us proud." So Claire worked 2 jobs. Barista at 6 in the morning, data entry until late at night. 5 years of exhaustion to finish a 4-year degree, but she graduated with an accounting diploma and 0 debt. Nobody came to the ceremony. No parents. No sister. No cheering from the Bennett family row because there was no Bennett family row. Claire stood alone in a crowd of families shouting names and taking photos. Still, she kept showing up to holidays, bringing gifts and desserts. She slept on the couch while Brooklyn took the guest room. Claire called home every Sunday. Her mother answered sometimes. Sometimes not. Everything changed 3 months ago at a coffee shop. Claire was picking up a latte when a woman waved at her. It was Megan, a classmate from Brooklyn's old nursing program. "Hey, Claire, right? Brooklyn's sister," she said cheerfully. Then she asked, "How's she doing? I haven't seen her since first semester." Claire froze. "First semester?" Megan nodded. "Yeah. She stopped showing up after October. I figured your family knew." Claire walked out of the cafe with shaking hands. That night, she searched the nursing program's graduate list. Brooklyn's name wasn't there. Not even close. The deeper she searched, the worse it became. Brooklyn had dropped out early enough for their parents to receive a partial tuition refund. That money never went back to them. Brooklyn had pocketed it and spent 8 years pretending to be a registered nurse. She bought scrubs online, memorized stories from medical shows, and told everyone she was saving lives. Nobody questioned her, not once. Then came the second discovery. During a rare Sunday call, Claire's mother muttered, "Your father's retirement looks thin." "I don't understand it." Claire, an accountant, noticed the red flags immediately. Something wasn't adding up. That night, Claire called her father's old landline and gently guided him through opening the retirement account online. What she saw made her chest tighten. Over 4 years, $47,000 had been transferred out in small amounts, all leading to an external checking account in Brooklyn City. Claire called her mother immediately, trying to warn her. Linda cut her off. "Don't be jealous of your sister, Claire. She manages that account because she's responsible." Claire stared at the phone after the call ended, realizing the truth. Telling them privately would never work. They were too loyal to Brooklyn, too blind to see anything else. Claire knew her grandmother, Grace, was the one person Brooklyn couldn't afford to fool. Grace was updating her will, something the whole family knew. And suddenly Brooklyn, who usually visited once a year, began showing up 4 times in 2 months. She brought flowers, soup she pretended to cook, and long stories about her hospital shifts. Linda bragged endlessly, "Brooklyn is so selfless. She takes such good care of your grandma." Claire saw the pattern clearly. Brooklyn wanted to be the only name in the will. "If I stay silent," Claire whispered to herself, "Grandma will give everything to a lie." She needed proof. Not suspicion. Not spreadsheets. Proof that Brooklyn couldn't twist or rewrite. Proof that spoke for itself. So Claire texted her sister. "Hey Brooke, can we talk before the reunion? I don't want things weird in front of Grandma." Brooklyn replied in 4 minutes. "Sure, your place." That alone was suspicious. Brooklyn never stepped foot in Claire's apartment unless she needed something. But the reunion was 3 weeks away, and Brooklyn wanted Claire calm and cooperative. When she arrived, she hugged Claire dramatically and scanned the apartment with a polite smile. "It's cozy," she said, voice dripping. Claire opened a bottle of white wine, poured Brooklyn a heavy glass, and placed her phone face down on the bookshelf behind them, recording. Georgia was a one-party consent state. Claire was the one party. She started lightly. "How's work? The hospital keeping you busy?" Brooklyn launched into a dramatic story about a patient who almost died in her arms. Every detail was flawless, every emotion practiced. Claire waited until she finished, then said, "That's interesting, because I ran into Megan Holt last month. She said something strange." Brooklyn froze mid-sip. "Megan talks too much," she said, voice suddenly hard. Claire let the silence work. Brooklyn drank her second glass. Then her third. The wine loosened something sharp inside her. Claire leaned forward, gentle. "Brooke, I'm not judging. I just want to understand. You're my sister." Brooklyn stared for a long moment. Then contempt slowly surfaced in her eyes. "You want to understand?" she said. "Fine." She leaned back casually. "I never finished nursing school. Big deal. Mom and Dad owed me that money for dealing with you my whole life." Claire said nothing. Brooklyn smirked. "Remember Grandma's necklace when you were 14? I took it. Needed you out of the picture." She said it proudly, without hesitation. "All I ever had to do was cry and Mom took my side. You were always easy to push away." Claire held her breath as the recording captured every word. Then Brooklyn continued, swirling her wine. "Dad's retirement? I've taken about 40 grand. They'll never notice. They think the market crashed." Claire's stomach twisted. "Still," she asked, "and Grandma?" Brooklyn leaned forward, smiling. "She's rewriting her will. I'm going to make sure my name is the only one that matters. And you'll get nothing. Because in this family I'm the daughter. You're the bill." Brooklyn fell asleep on Claire's couch 15 minutes later, still wearing her shoes, her empty wineglass on the table. Claire stood over her sister, unsure whether to feel anger, grief, or relief. She pulled a blanket over Brooklyn anyway. Then she walked into the dark kitchen, sat alone, and stopped the recording. 14 minutes and 22 seconds. She listened once more, making sure every word was clear. "You're the bill." She didn't cry. Something inside her had shifted, something heavy and long overdue. She placed the phone in her bag and knew she couldn't tell her family privately. They wouldn't believe her. 2 weeks before the reunion, Claire called her Aunt Rose, the one person who had ever truly seen her. Rose had driven 3 hours during a snowstorm when Claire had pneumonia. She sent flowers to Claire's college graduation when nobody else came. "Hey, sweetheart," Rose answered. Claire hesitated, then asked, "Aunt Rose, have you ever felt something was off about Brooklyn?" There was a long silence, then a slow exhale. "I've suspected for years," Rose admitted. Her stories never added up. "I told your mother once and she cut me out of the family for 6 months. Claire closed her eyes. "I need your help." Rose listened quietly as Claire asked her a careful question. "You're handling the slideshow at the reunion, right?" Rose nodded on the phone. "Yes. Projector, sound, everything." Claire swallowed. "If I needed to connect my phone to it, would that be possible?" Another pause. Rose finally said, "It's just an HDMI adapter." "But Claire, what are you planning?" Claire's voice steadied. "Something the family needs to hear." Rose exhaled again, softer this time. "I don't know what you have, but I trust you. I'll make sure the equipment works." It was the first time Claire felt someone standing beside her. 10 days before the reunion, Claire received a handwritten letter from her grandmother. The paper was cream-colored, the handwriting shaky but full of love. "My dear Claire, the reunion is July 19th. I want both my granddaughters there. Please come. I want to see your face. Love, Grandma." Claire held the letter to her chest. 15 minutes later, her mother called. "You got the invitation," Linda said sharply. "Good. Now behave yourself. Brooklyn will be giving a speech about her nursing career. Don't make it about you." Claire stared at the wall and said quietly, "I'll be there." Linda continued lecturing. "Wear something decent this time. And Grandma is making big family announcements, so don't cause problems." Then she hung up like she always did. Claire sat on her bed reading Grandma's letter again, then looked at the white dress she'd been saving. "This is Brooklyn's stage," she thought. "They expect me to sit quietly in the audience." But she was done following their script. That night she listened to the recording one last time. Her thumb hovered over the delete button for 10 seconds. Then she put the phone in her bag. She was done being silent. The night before the reunion, Claire sat on her living room floor, the recording playing softly through her earbuds. Each sentence cut through years of buried pain. "You'll get nothing, you're the bill." Her hands shook as she listened, but she didn't cry. After the recording ended, she wrote a short letter to her grandmother. "I'm sorry if tomorrow hurts you, but you always taught me that truth matters more than comfort. I hope you still believe that." She sealed it, placed it in her bag beside the phone, and stared at the ceiling. For once, morning didn't scare her. The Callahan estate sat on 3 acres of soft Georgia green, wrapped in tall magnolia trees and a white wooden fence her grandfather had painted each spring until the year he died. Claire arrived early in her white dress, heart pounding. Rose was already at the tech table checking wires. When she saw Claire, she nodded once and tapped the HDMI adapter resting near the projector. Silent confirmation that everything was ready. Guests filled the lawn slowly. Cousins laughed, uncles told jokes, great-aunts complained about heat. And then Brooklyn arrived, floating in a red dress like she was stepping onto a movie set. Brooklyn hugged relatives, posed for photos, and placed herself beside Grandma Grace, squeezing her hand sweetly for every camera angle. Claire stood near the hydrangeas at the back with a cup of sweet tea she didn't drink. When Grandma finally looked over Brooklyn's shoulder and saw Claire, she offered a soft, sad smile that squeezed Claire's chest. Dinner started shortly after. Fried chicken, greens, cornbread, peach cobbler. Everyone filled their plates. Claire, as always, ended up at the far end of the second table. No assigned seating, but the family's invisible map always placed her at the edges. After dinner, Linda stood and tapped her fork against a glass. Conversations faded. "Before the slideshow, Brooklyn would like to share something," she announced proudly. Brooklyn walked to the front with a grin, holding the wireless mic. "Thank you," she began. "Being a nurse has been the greatest blessing of my life." She launched into a dramatic 5-minute speech full of fake hospital stories, tearful moments, and imaginary patients. The family applauded loudly when she finished. Some even stood. A great-aunt leaned over to Claire and asked, "And what do you do, dear?" Before Claire could answer, Linda called out, "She works in accounting. Somewhere." Then Claire's father stood up to speak. Glenn was quiet by nature, but tonight he held a folded paper, one Linda had written for him. "Thank you all for coming," he said shakily. "This family means everything to us. And we only have one daughter we are truly proud of." The lawn fell silent. Brooklyn smiled. Claire didn't move. Glenn continued praising Brooklyn's career, her kindness, her sacrifices. By the time he finished, a thin wave of applause moved through the crowd. Grandma Grace turned slowly toward Claire, her face tightening with worry. Claire felt her heart break, then harden. Enough was enough. Claire stood slowly, not in anger but with the calm of someone who had carried a decision for weeks. Whispers spread through the tables. Linda's voice snapped across the lawn, sharp and warning. "Claire, sit down. Don't start." Claire didn't look at her. She walked straight toward the projector, the crowd parting as if sensing the shift in the air. Brooklyn froze at the front table, wineglass trembling in her hand. For the first time in years, Claire saw fear in her sister's eyes. Rose stepped aside and placed the HDMI adapter in Claire's hand without a word. Claire plugged her phone in. The projector screen brightened behind her, replacing the frozen family slideshow with a blank white glow. Glenn stepped forward, voice thin. "Claire, this is not the right moment." She met his eyes, steady. "Dad, it's the only moment." She opened the audio file. The timestamp, 14:22, appeared on the screen. Then she pressed play. Brooklyn's voice echoed across the lawn, loud and unmistakable. "I didn't finish nursing school. Big deal. Mom and Dad owed me that money." Gasps rose from several tables. A fork dropped. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Linda jumped up from her seat, rushing toward the projector like she could physically stop the truth. "Turn it off, Claire. Turn it off right now." Before she could reach the speakers, Grandma Grace's voice cut through the evening. "Linda." She didn't shout. She didn't need to. The authority of 79 years carried the weight. "Sit down." Linda froze mid-step, breathing hard, then slowly returned to her chair. Claire kept the phone steady in her hand. The recording continued. "All I have to do is cry and Mom believes everything I say." Linda covered her mouth, eyes filling with disbelief. Next came the retirement confession. "I've taken about 40 grand. They think the market crashed." Glenn sank into his seat as if the ground had disappeared beneath him. "That's our retirement," he whispered, unaware the microphone still picked him up. Linda turned to Brooklyn with trembling hands. "Tell me that isn't true. Please tell me." Brooklyn's real voice stumbled. "Mom, I was going to fix it. Claire set me up. She trapped me." But her recorded voice kept talking over her. "Brooklyn never gets questioned. All I have to do is act sad and they take my side." Then came the necklace. "I took Grandma's pendant when Claire was 14. I needed her gone for Thanksgiving." A small, broken sound escaped Grandma Grace, a sound Claire had never heard from her. She pressed her shaking hand flat against the table. Tears slid down her cheeks. The recording rolled on. "And Grandma? She's rewriting her will. I'll make sure my name is the only one that matters. Claire will get nothing. In this family I'm the daughter. She's the bill." By then Brooklyn was standing, shaking, mascara streaked. She bolted from the table trying to run, but 68 people watched her go. Brooklyn ran across the lawn, one heel snapping against the grass, her red dress catching the string lights as she tried to escape the moment she created. But the estate was too large and the gate was too far. Cousin Mark stood by the garden path, arms folded, blocking the exit without touching her. Brooklyn stopped, breathing hard, staring at the ground. Behind her, Grandma Grace rose from her chair and walked to the center of the lawn with the slow dignity of a woman who had reached her breaking point. Someone handed her the microphone and the crowd fell silent. "I have spent 79 years building this family," Grace said, her voice trembling but strong enough to carry. "And today I learned I trusted the wrong granddaughter." She turned to Claire, her expression full of painful regret. "I owe you an apology. I watched them push you aside for years. I told myself it would get better, but it didn't. I should have spoken sooner." Claire swallowed hard as Grace continued. "I will meet with my attorney Monday morning. My will is being rewritten. Not because of money, but because trust must be earned back." After the announcement, The reunion shattered into quiet clusters, everyone processing the truth. Brooklyn tried to defend herself, insisting the recording was manipulated. But Rose stepped forward calmly. "Brooklyn, I suspected you 3 years ago. I told your mother and she cut me out. This recording only confirmed what we already knew." Linda turned on Claire with red eyes. "How could you do this to us?" Claire stood still. "I didn't do this to our family, Mom. Brooklyn did. I just stopped hiding it." She walked to the edge of the garden and sat on a stone ledge, finally breathing. Her father found her minutes later, hands in his pockets, shoulders heavy. "Did I really say that, about only having one daughter?" he asked quietly. Claire looked at him. "Stat. You did." He nodded slowly, eyes wet. "Your mother wrote those words. She told me to read them." Claire sighed. "And you chose to read them." Glenn didn't argue. He simply whispered, "I'm sorry, Claire. I don't know how to fix this." Claire's voice was soft but firm. "Start by not pretending I don't exist." He nodded, a tear breaking loose, and walked away without another word. Claire sat alone until Grandma Grace joined her, lowering herself carefully onto the porch step. "You held that recording for weeks," Grace said gently. "You could have used it to hurt her earlier, but you waited." Claire looked at the garden, now quiet and dim. "I didn't want revenge, Grandma. I just wanted the truth to be louder than the lies." Grace took her hand, her grip steady. "You deserve peace, sweetheart. You always have." In the weeks that followed, Brooklyn vanished from the family circle. Her parents began rebuilding their relationship with Claire, and Grace rewrote her will with fairness at its center. Claire finally understood something she had never been told. She was never the family burden. She was simply the one who survived the story they wrote for her, and the one who had the courage to change it.